Welcome to Inside the Mavs live right here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Of course, my name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch me on your home on the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers 105.3 The Fan. It is game day for the Mavericks as the Dallas Mavericks look to close out their first round series against the Utah Jazz tonight at 9 o'clock, a late start time tonight as the Dallas Mavericks looking to win their first playoff series since 2011, where, of course, they won the NBA championship. Utah is trying to come back and overcome a 3-2 deficit for the first time since the 2007 Western Conference playoffs in the first round against the Houston Rockets. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks are in position after getting a dominant 25-point win in game number 5 on the road in Utah in what should be a hostile environment tonight inside Vivint Arena at 9 p.m. Central Time to try and get themselves a win and to move on to the Western Conference semifinals, where they will take on either the New Orleans Pelicans or the Phoenix Suns. Game 6 for the Pelicans and the Suns is also tonight. We'll see if the Phoenix Suns can close out their first round series against the New Orleans Pelicans, or can the Pelicans extend it to a game 7, which would be on Saturday if the Pelicans can find a way to get it done in game number 6. Meanwhile, for the Dallas Mavericks, regardless if they win tonight or if they win on Saturday in game 7, game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals is on Monday. Again, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. This is Inside the Mavs live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Make sure you subscribe. You can also become a member to Kevin Gray Sports for just a couple bucks a month if you don't mind doing that. If you want to become a member here on Kevin Gray Sports, you can definitely do that by hitting the member button, just a couple dollars a month there. Or you can want to throw in a super chat. Go ahead and throw in a super chat there. I'll be taking your questions live right here on Inside the Mavs. Of course, I'm your Mavs insider for 105.3 The Fan. Cover all things for the Dallas Mavericks for our home of the Cowboys, the Texas Rangers 105.3 The Fan. But again, you can throw in a super chat in there. I'll get your questions in, get those answered as we go into game number 6 tonight. Things that we're going to be talking about today: keys to victory for the Dallas Mavericks, best case and worst case scenarios for your Mavericks tonight. I want to get your predictions. Let me know how you think tonight's game is going to go, what the score is going to be, how the game is going to play out. And then, of course, we'll get into who wins and why tonight as well. Make sure you hit that like button as well. Make sure you get the likes up on the video. Let people know that we got Inside the Mavs on right now here on Kevin Gray Sports. The Dallas Mavericks have done a terrific job when it comes to defending Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell says he is going to be good to go to play tonight in game 6. He's got the bilateral quadriceps contusions, even though he went for an MRI on his hamstrings. He does say, though, he will be good to go for game 6. They're going to need him if you're the Utah Jazz, because he has been absolutely dreadful in this series. He's just 3 for his last 30 from the three-point line, spanning the last 14 quarters. He has struggled mightily from outside, and you give a lot of that credit to Dorian Finney-Smith and what he has done in terms of his defense on Donovan Mitchell in this series. Donovan Mitchell has given a lot of credit to Dorian Finney-Smith for the way that he's defended him throughout this series. Reggie Bullock has done a really nice job on Mike Conley, virtually playing Mike Conley off the floor when it comes to this series. Pat Tolliver, good to see you here inside the Mavs live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Let me know your prediction, what you think is going to happen tonight. Are the Mavericks going to close it out in game 6? But as I was mentioning, Donovan Mitchell's been locked up by Dorian Finney-Smith. Even though you've seen some big numbers for Donovan Mitchell, his efficiency has been terrible in this series. Reggie Bullock's done a great job defending Mike Conley, virtually playing him off the floor. Obviously, for the Mavericks, what we saw in game 5, Luka Doncic and his defensive rebounding make all the difference for the Dallas Mavericks. He had 13 rebounds in game 5, all of them on the defensive glass. That just gives you an idea of how important he is when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks' ability to limit the possessions of the Utah Jazz. One and done possessions is going to be key in game number 6 tonight. We know that Utah is going to try and come out early on, try to put an early run on the Mavericks, try to get the crowd into it early tonight in game 6. How the Mavericks would stand that early run of the Utah Jazz, being able to withstand the storm and remain in it. When you look at how well the Dallas Mavericks have played in clutch time situations this year, we know that they have been really good when you get down to it as far as the final 5 minutes of ball games are concerned, unlike they did in Game 4. For most of the season, this team has been really good in clutch time. When you look at the Dallas Mavericks and what they can do, if you can keep this game close going into the fourth quarter, all the pressure is on the Utah Jazz. That has been one of the underlying currents of this series when it comes to how the Dallas Mavericks are putting the pressure on the Utah Jazz. From Terrell Pierce here on YouTube, Dodo got Spider in handcuffs. All starters will have double figures, plus the mayor having his best game for the series. Hashtag MFFL. Look, Dorian Finney-Smith has been really good in this series, a guy that at some point down the line will be a future All-NBA defensive player. He's been that good, and he's gotten a lot of credit from a lot of guys this year by the way that he's come out and played defense, especially when you look at this series and the way that Donovan Mitchell has given him praise throughout this series. From Pat Tolliver, Mavs moving on to the second round after tonight. That's the hope, right? That they can move on, as I mentioned, regardless if the Mavericks win tonight in Game 6 or if they have to come back to Dallas for a Game 7 on Saturday. That Western Conference semifinals, whether they face the Pelicans or the Suns, begins on Monday. They could find themselves at home if they take on the Pelicans, obviously, for Game 1. If not, they will be on the road to take on the Phoenix Suns. What's up, Micah? Good to see you here inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. We're going through our keys to victory. Give me your keys to victory. Throw in a super chat in there. If you want to, you can also become a member right here on Kevin Gray Sports. If you got a question you want to get in there, definitely let that be known right here inside the Mavs Live. Keys to victory, again, as we continue to go through that, the defensive rebound is going to have to be key in Game 6 for the Mavericks, just like it was in Game 5, limiting the possessions of the Utah Jazz. One and done. Obviously, their ability to stay out of foul trouble, unlike they did in Game 4, where they put the Utah Jazz on the free throw line 42 times, only 21 times in Game number 5. Their ability to defend without fouling was key in that game to not only executing the defensive game plan, but being able to stay out of foul trouble, which is going to be huge because Maxi Kleber has to stay out of foul trouble. He has to be able to be a guy that stays on the floor. If you're going to play that 5-out offense that the Dallas Mavericks like to use, especially with Maxi Kleber in there, you've got to be able to have him stay on the floor when it comes to his ability to stretch the floor from the three-point line. Make sure you hit that like button there right here on Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube, inside the Mavs Live right here, as we get you ready for Game number 6 between the Mavericks and the Jazz. That 5-out offense has been lethal at times for the Mavericks in this series, but it all hinges on Maxi Kleber's ability to stay on the floor, not only with his defense and what he can do from a rotational standpoint and the versatility he provides defensively, but what we saw earlier on in this series, if you go all the way back to Game number 2, where he hit 8 3-pointers in that game, 7 of those 3-pointers were uncontested 3-pointers in that series. They have to be able, specifically Maxi Kleber, to knock down shots in this game. The Mavericks were not great in Game number 5 when it came to not just their outside shooting from the three-point line, but just overall from the field. They've got to be much better in this game to not put as much stress on the defense to be able to have to perform the way that they did in Game number 5. Appreciate you hitting that like button here on Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview as we get you ready for the Mavericks taking on the Utah Jazz. We're going through our keys to victory right now as the Mavericks look to close out the Game 6 tonight on the road and close out this series against the Utah Jazz. Other things that the Mavericks have to do, specifically down to Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie has not been great in this series at all from a shooting standpoint. But when I talked to Jason Kidd earlier this week, he said, we like the shots that Spencer Dinwiddie is getting. We like the looks that he's getting. It's just a matter of him knocking down those shots. And if he can do so, that's going to be huge for us going into not only the rest of this series, but throughout the course of the rest of the playoffs. It's going to be huge for Spencer Dinwiddie to have the ability to not only get to the bucket, drive the lane, but also finish at the rim and get to the free throw line. But he's got to make Utah respect his ability to knock down shots, not just in the mid-range, but also from the three-point line. If he can have a much more consistent game, not just driving the ball to the basket, but also being able to hit some outside shots, that's going to change how things look for the Mavericks when it comes to this game What's up, TJK TV? Appreciate you joining us right here inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Again, hit that like button right there while you're here. Get me your keys to victory. Tell me what you're thinking that you want to see when it comes to the Mavericks trying to close out the Utah Jazz tonight in game number 6. From TJK TV, I think we're due for an efficient Dinwiddie game. He'll be a bigger piece in the next series for sure. That's what you're hoping for, right? The reason why you brought Spencer Dinwiddie over was not just the ball handling skills, his ability to get to the cup and to finish at the rim, but he's been really good in clutch time this season, becoming a part of the Dallas Mavericks. We know what he did in Boston. We know what he did in Brooklyn. This is a guy that isn't afraid to take late game shots and be able to knock down those shots. From Coltrane Comain right here on YouTube. This one is going to be tighter, but Luka Magic is going to close out the series. Luka Doncic is back to his full capability and powers. As we mentioned earlier, the 13 rebounds on the defensive glass, an eraser on the glass for the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic's ability to get into the lane to create for himself and obviously for his teammates. The beautiful layup that he had with the series of fakes and moves on Rudy Gobert just shows you how much he is back. And obviously we know how much his teammates love him and come to protect him. You saw when he tried to dunk on Hassan Whiteside and it didn't work out for him. Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith came to his defense and were right there to be able to help out their teammate. That's what you like about this team, how together they are, how they play for one another. They're connected for one another. That has been a hallmark of this team all season long and what has been a common theme for this team all season long. From Pat Tolliver here on YouTube, defensive rebounds will give us the edge. Yeah, that was huge in game 5. The fact that the Dallas Mavericks for the first time in this series won the rebounding margin, out-rebounding the Utah Jazz 49-40 in game 5. That's huge because, again, we talk about limiting the offensive possessions for the Utah Jazz, not allowing guys like Bogdanovich, Mitchell, Conley, Jordan Clarkson, who's really been the only true consistent source of offense for the Utah Jazz in this series, not allowing them to have multiple possessions and multiple opportunities for second chance points. That's going to be huge also in game number 6 tonight. Their ability to not only limit possessions, but also when you get the defensive rebounding, being able to get out and pick your spots when it comes to getting out in transition. The Mavericks have done a good job in this series when they've had opportunities to get out and run on the break off defensive rebounding. They've been able to do pretty well when it comes to finishing at the rim. You want to see them continue to be much better in terms of efficiency and finishing at the rim, but I like the fact that they've taken their opportunities to do so when they felt capable of doing that. Appreciate you hitting that like button here inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Of course, my name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right here for Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. And you can also become a member right here on Kevin Gray Sports. If you want to throw a super chat in there, if you want to get your question read immediately, throw a super chat in there. We'll get to your question here as we get you ready for the Mavs taking on the Jazz tonight in game number 6. Can the Mavericks close out the Utah Jazz tonight? Felipe, appreciate you joining us right here on Inside the Mavs Live. At Harold Victor, what do you think of Trae Young's ice cold performance? We won the 2018 trade with Luka and Jalen Brunson. No more discussions. Yeah, I think for a lot of people that's been put to bed. Your man Trae Young had more turnovers than he did field goals in the series against the Miami Heat. But I think both teams won that trade. You saw what Trae Young did last year in the NBA playoffs, becoming public enemy number 1 for the New York Knicks. I think both teams were happy about the way that the trade went down. Obviously, the Mavericks have gotten the better of it when it comes to Luka Doncic, who I think is on his way to being a 3-time first-team All-NBA selection. I think both teams won in this particular case. From Frosty Nugs 41, we need to take the lead and be efficient. No second chance points. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Defensive rebounding, limiting the possessions, one and done for the Utah Jazz, not giving them second chance opportunities. We know Rudy Gobert is really good on the offensive glass. They have got to be a good team rebounding team to ensure that they are erasing opportunities for second chance points for the Utah Jazz tonight. Again, make sure you hit that like button here as you're on Inside the Mavs Live right here, our Mavs versus Jazz Game 6 preview as we get you ready for the Dallas Mavericks looking to close out the Utah Jazz, trying to win their first playoff series since 2011 when, of course, they won the NBA championship. Let me know what you think the best case and worst case scenarios are going into game number 6 tonight. Obviously, the best case scenario, if you're a Mavericks fan, is seeing the Dallas Mavericks close out the game tonight and be able to get some rest going into their second round series, their Western Conference semifinals, which would start on Monday. From Romel Jurado, can we utilize Marquise Chris and Ntilikina to put the nail in the coffin in this game? Haven't obviously seen Frank Ntilikina as he's been dealing with a little bit of illness. Marquise Chris has been used sparingly throughout really the second half of the year, but we know the rotations have been shorter. If we're going to look for a guy, Davis Bertans, again, we talked about a little bit earlier with the 5-out offense that the Dallas Mavericks like to play. Davis Bertans is going to see time at the 5 as well. His ability to stretch the floor from the three-point line is going to be huge for the Mavericks if you're going to see him out on the floor when it comes to Davis Bertans' ability to play at that 5. We know what Maxi Kleber does at the 5 as well. But guys like him, Josh Green, and Maxi Kleber are going to be huge. You remember what they did in game number 3. Those 3 guys, Green, Bertans, and Kleber, going 14 of 20 from the field, 11 of 17 from the three-point line. Josh Green is going to have his opportunities to be left wide open to knock down shots. We know how creative of a passer he is. We know that he can finish out in transition. They're going to leave him open for shots tonight. He's got to be able to knock those down for the Dallas Mavericks to be able to have the opportunity to not only win this game, but to win this game in big fashion. From Harold Victor here on Kevin Gray Sports, here inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Is Mitchell playing tonight? He says he's good to go. Donovan Mitchell says that he is good to go tonight. He's dealing with the bilateral quadriceps contusions. The MRI for his hamstring came back negative. He said that he's a competitor and that he's going to be good to go tonight for the Utah Jazz. Now, how healthy is he going to be? That obviously remains the question for how effective he will be tonight. But he does say that he will go as far as the Utah Jazz are concerned. Appreciate you hitting that like button right here inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports from GJK TV. As far as tonight's game, it's on how prepared Kid has the boys, but with Mitchell nursing a weird injury, I just don't see them having enough juice to pull out the win. That's a lot of the consensus right now when it comes to the Utah Jazz. As you remember, all the pressure is on Utah. They're going through a 5-6 year run where they have not been able to have the kind of deep playoff success that, based on the talent that they have, should be able to be much better when it comes to making deeper runs in the NBA playoffs, especially obviously in the Western Conference. They simply haven't done it. This appears to be the last stand for Quinn Snyder as the head coach, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and they've already moved on from Joe Ingles earlier on this year. This appears to be the last gasp for the Utah Jazz and their ability to stay together as a team. Can they find a measure of resolve tonight to try and put themselves in position to force a Game 7 in Dallas? From Felipe McNamara, appreciate it. Always enjoying the broadcast. Appreciate you joining us right here on Inside the Mavs here on Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. We're going through our best case, worst case scenarios. Best case scenario, you get it done tonight. You get Utah out of the paint in Game 6. You have an opportunity to rest with Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals on Monday. Obviously, worst case scenario, losing tonight in game number 6. But even with losing, you still get to come back to your own building where you just put together your most dominant performance of the season, a 25-point beatdown of the Utah Jazz in Game 5. You would feel very confident coming back into your own building, knowing what you've been able to do in this series. We saw the terrific performance from Jalen Brunson, who we're just now getting to. We haven't even talked about Jalen Brunson and how spectacular he has been for the Mavericks in this series, how he's been able to take the ball to the basket, floaters in the mid-range, all the things that he's done. He's been spectacular in this series. Make sure you subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can become a member for a couple bucks. If you got a super chat and you want a question that you want to get in, make sure you throw that in there as well. From Romel Jurado, who do you think will be the X factor for Game 6 for the Mavericks? Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie is my X factor going into game number 6 tonight. You brought him over with his ability to be a secondary ball handler, shot creator, and playmaker for himself and for his teammates. But his ability to knock down shots has to be much better when it comes to this Mavericks team. He has got to find himself being much more consistent on the offensive end. We know that he's not necessarily going to be great defensively. His calling card, his ability to create and be able to put his team in position where he is getting consistent, not only free throw attempts, but putting pressure on Gobert, putting pressure on Whiteside to be able to get those guys potentially into foul trouble. Spencer Dinwiddie is my X factor going into tonight's game. He hasn't had a great game yet in this series. He's had moments in this series, but I'm looking for Spencer Dinwiddie to have that breakout game in this series. He needs to have one tonight, I think, to be able to have that kind of impact that you're looking for as an X factor. From Harold Victor, what pieces do you think we need to be contenders going forward? I'm tired of the media's disrespect. It depends on what you're looking for. For me, it's a big man. I know Dwight Powell is extremely effective with Luka Doncic as far as the pick and roll is concerned and all the things that they're able to do. That would be mine going into this offseason. And then maybe if whatever you decide to do with Tim Hardaway Jr., Spencer Dinwiddie, and that going forward. For Frosty Nugs 41, I would trust Chris's defense over Bertans. I would tend to agree with you. Bertans is kind of a revolving door when it comes to his defense, but you didn't bring him over to play defense. You brought him to be a three-point sniper on the outside and the perimeter for the Dallas Mavericks. That's what you brought him over for, to be that guy going forward for the Mavericks. From TJK TV, not to get ahead of ourselves, but does the current tandem of Luka and Brunson give you some LeBron Kyrie vibes? They are just a difficult duo to deal with. I'm not necessarily ready to go there just yet. Look, for all the criticisms of Kyrie Irving, all of those things are, look, I appreciate that, Felipe McNamara. Welcome to the Gray Area Club. Appreciate you becoming a member right here on the Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Really appreciate that. Look, I'm not ready to go there yet when it comes to that kind of duo. Kyrie Irving's a special offensive player. You can criticize Kyrie Irving for what he is, how he is as a teammate. He is a special dude offensively. That dude is a baller. I'm not ready to go yet. I still think that Kyrie Irving is a more gifted offensive player than Jalen Brunson, but I see where you're going in terms of the consistency with Luka and Brunson, and that's been the most fascinating part of this series when we talk about how this series has played out so far. Again, subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can become a member just like Felipe McNamara did. Appreciate you becoming a member right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Welcome to the Gray Area Club. Felipe, really appreciate that. Jalen Brunson has become unguardable in this series. Absolutely unguardable. Conley can't do anything with him. Mitchell can't do anything with him. Bogdanovich bothered him a little bit when they started picking up full court, but he hasn't really been able to do anything with him. Jalen Brunson has put himself in position to be a guy that's going to have a 9-figure payday this offseason. From Frosty Nugs 41, Royce O'Neal nor Mike can guard him. Yeah, Royce O'Neal is taking turns. We saw him put together a highlight reel of cheap shots when it came to the Mavericks earlier on in the series, specifically against Jalen Brunson. There has been no one who has consistently been able to guard Jalen Brunson in this series. And that, to me, has been the most stunning development of watching the series. Even in game one, when he went 9 of 24 from the field, he was getting the kinds of shots that you wanted from him and getting to the rim. He just simply wasn't making them. He has done much better, obviously, as the series gone on, obviously culminating to the point where he had a 41-point game earlier on in this series. Jalen Brunson's development and how he has played throughout this series has been, to me, one of the most stunning developments of the entire NBA playoffs. A lot of people will say, well, Kevin, the matchup has just been really good for him facing a team in Utah who can't defend the perimeter. The only real true perimeter defender that they have is the guy Royce O'Neal, and he isn't necessarily great either. So it's been, yes, a great matchup for Jalen Brunson, but he's taken advantage of a weak perimeter defense of the Utah Jazz and has become virtually unguardable in this series. How that will look against a team like the Phoenix Suns, for example, who have the kind of length with guys like Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, they can throw multiple bodies, Cam Johnson and others. That will be fun to watch if the Dallas Mavericks do find themselves moving on to the Western Conference semifinals. Again, make sure you hit that like button right there for Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. This Inside the Mavs live right here as we get you ready for the Mavericks taking on the Jazz in Game 6 tonight. If the Mavericks are unable to close it out tonight, they will have Game 7 on their home floor on Saturday to try and move on in the playoffs for the first time since 2011. From Ruben Jimenez, I see another good win tonight. The team as a whole are rolling. No matter if one person is off, the next man up has been great. And it's great. It's funny that you mentioned that because that's what this team has talked about all season. Next man up mentality, specifically Jalen Brunson. He's talked about that throughout the course of the season. Whenever a guy has gone down with injury, whenever a guy has not been able to play as well as the Mavericks would like him to, other guys have stepped up. And that has been proven in this series and has come to fruition, obviously, with the way Jalen Brunson has stepped up in this series and the way that he's been capable of playing. That's how good this team has been and how connected they are playing together. From Harold Victor here, when it comes to Inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports, do you really think other superstars don't want to play with Luka because he's a ball dominant type of player? I think the reason why players haven't necessarily decided to come play with Luka yet is because this is why this series is so important. His ability to help his team get out of the first round, I think, will prove to other stars around the league that he is not only capable of leading a team out of just the first round of the Western Conference playoffs, but also could be the guy that if he decides that he wants to have another piece come along with him, if this Mavericks team is looking for another piece, other guys around the league will look at Dallas' situation and say, maybe I could be the guy that comes in to help get the Mavericks over the hump. Maybe I could be the guy that goes alongside Luka to help the Mavericks get deep into the Western Conference playoffs. That's why I've assigned so much importance to this series and why I wanted them to get home court advantage in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs to give themselves the best opportunity to win and to move on in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. That is how important this series is, not just for the franchise's direction going forward, but also their ability to say and signal to other stars around the league that Dallas is a destination that you want to come to because Luka Doncic is on the precipice of taking this team into deep playoff runs for a long time. Do you want to be a part of this organization, given what you've seen in terms of the success? And then obviously with Jalen Brunson's development, just another piece that would give a player confidence that he would want to join this team, given how successful they have been so far in this postseason. Make sure you hit that like button right here on Inside the Mavs Live, our Mavericks versus Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka and the Mavs close out the Utah Jazz tonight? Question from TGK TV. Are the Mavericks able to match any offer Brunson gets to keep him? Like we can go into the luxury tax and not have to offload players to open cap space, if you don't mind clarifying it. Yeah, sure. So the Dallas Mavericks hold Jalen Brunson's bird rights. They can offer him a 5-year deal where other teams around the league can only offer him a 4-year deal. They hold his bird rights. They can have him sign a longer-term deal. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get a deal done during the offseason, didn't get a deal done during the, after the trade deadline. They've put themselves in a position where they're going to have to go into the luxury tax, and Mark Cuban is comfortable with that. Mark Cuban has said, look, I know that I'm going to be in salary and the luxury tax hell when it comes to the cap, and he's okay with that. And I think the Mavericks are very motivated to keep Jalen Brunson, not just because of how well he's played this playoffs, but if you look at him from a player development standpoint, he has been everything that you've wanted from the Mavericks since being drafted alongside Luka Doncic back in 2018. He has continuously developed, gotten better year after year, and he could do everything on the floor that you want. So when you look at what the Mavericks can offer, they can offer him a 5-year deal. They retain his bird rights, and they can match any deal that a team on the outside would possibly look to bring him in for. Teams like the Pistons, the Knicks, a dark horse team, maybe like the Indiana Pacers, obviously with the familiarity that you see when it comes to Rick Carlisle and Jalen Brunson knowing who you play with. From Q Dog, appreciate the super chat, Q Dog, right here on Kevin Gray Sports Inside the Mavs Live right here. Who could you sign and trade Brunson for? Would you? I wouldn't. That is how valuable Jalen Brunson has become for this team. His ability to play off of Luka Doncic, to complement Luka Doncic the way that he does. I'm not trading Jalen Brunson. Now, unless there's a superstar that wants to come to Dallas that you would want to have a sign and trade for, that would be, something that you would obviously look at. But as of right now, there isn't really too many guys. Again, we're talking about guys that would be a second star to Luka Doncic. But that's how valuable Jalen Brunson has put himself in as far as the Dallas Mavericks. I wouldn't necessarily do a sign and trade with him just because he's only going to continue to get better. You saw the breakout he's had in these playoffs so far. If he has this kind of improvement continuing to go forward, and I think one of the most disrespectful things of this entire season was the fact that he didn't get more consideration for the most improved player. I know John Morant won it, obviously improved by leaps and bounds. But as far as the spirit of the rule is concerned, I don't think John Morant should have won the award. Now, I got to make sure I check myself because I was also the same guy that thought Luka Doncic should have won the most improved player a couple of years ago after coming off a terrific season. So I can't necessarily say that and be the guy that also said Luka Doncic should have won most improved player. So congratulations, John Morant. I feel like Jalen Brunson should have got much more consideration, though, for NBA's most improved player. From Pat Tyler over there. Y'all do know like hitting the like button is free. Yes, it is free. You can hit the like button right there. Appreciate you joining us inside the Mavs Live, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka Doncic and the Mavericks close out the Utah Jazz tonight? But appreciate the super chat, Q-Dog, right there on inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. I'm personally keeping Jalen Brunson. He's done enough to me to earn the right to be here long term. I think the Mavericks feel the same way. I think they'll be motivated to get a deal done with him going into this offseason to try and get something done for him very quickly to make sure that he's not getting to the open market to where teams like the Knicks, the Pistons, the Pacers, or any other dark horse team that would come in with a competitive offer to try and do something with him. From TJK TV, I know this is a pipe dream, but if we could do a sign and trade for Ayton while trading Tim Hardaway Jr., Bertans, and some picks, that would be what we need. That's what we were talking about earlier. If I have a need for the Mavericks going into the offseason, a talented big man. Now, look, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. But watching Rudy Gobert and what he's able to do with his defense, I think he would be a perfect fit here in Dallas. I know the salary is really big and it's astronomical, and you would have two guys on max deals playing for the Dallas Mavericks. And yes, you have questions about how Rudy Gobert would assimilate into a locker room given how his relationship with Donovan Mitchell soured. I think he would be just fine here, knowing that Luka Doncic is the alpha male, number one on this team. I think he would assimilate just fine when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks and him potentially signing or being here if you wanted to do something with him. But I love DeAndre Ayton as a player. I think it's interesting how the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul's contract are trying, to me, tied to DeAndre Ayton, because DeAndre Ayton really took off when Chris Paul got to Phoenix. He's been terrific since Chris Paul has gotten there. How the Phoenix Suns view him as a player outside of Chris Paul, to me, will be interesting to see as time goes on with the Phoenix Suns. Jackie Flash, is Ayton a restricted free agent? I'll have to check on that to make sure when it comes to DeAndre Ayton and his free agency status for the Phoenix Suns. But that's going to be interesting. I've always thought that the Phoenix Suns have looked at DeAndre Ayton in the context of how well he has played with a guy in Chris Paul. At Wow Wim Tim, I'd rather just sign Mitchell Robinson over Rudy. And I get that. Especially with the cost when it comes to Rudy Gobert and how much he would cost, not only in terms of trade value and draft capital to possibly have to utilize, not just without the contracts as well, or with the contracts as well, excuse me. That would be something you would look at as well, because he was in the same draft as looking back in 2018. Yeah, of course, DeAndre Ayton was the number one overall pick back in 2018. So we'll see when it comes to that. From Romel Hirado, credit to Nico Harrison and Michael Finley for steering the Mavs in the right direction this time. I think the Mavs are back to contention long-term wise. We'll see. Nico Harrison is 1 for 1 when it comes to his trades, obviously, with moving Kristaps Porzingis on to Washington and obviously getting Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans back from Ikilish. Rudy's a bad fit for us. I get where people come from when they say Rudy is a bad fit. I think he's a perfect one. I think he would be terrific in pick and roll stuff with Luka Doncic. He would get easy buckets all night long for the Mavericks. Defensively, he's a 3-time defensive player of the year, and you need that defensive anchor in the middle. One thing that I think Utah could do tonight that they've done at times in this series is try to attack the Dallas Mavericks in the paint. For all the good things that the Mavericks have done defensively, they still do not have a guy in the middle that intimidates you when it comes to defense inside the paint. They don't have that guy. So you could still see the Utah Jazz with guys like Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson trying to attack the paint to try and put pressure on Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell to try and get them into the foul trouble. That is why I say a guy like Rudy Gobert, a DeAndre Ayton, big physical centers that can provide paint presence, especially on the defensive end, would be perfect fits for the Dallas Mavericks, because you look at how well their perimeter defense is with Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock. They've got guys that can defend on the perimeter. They need that defensive anchor in the middle to be able to help them out when they do get blown by. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the Rudy Gobert slander to me is unwarranted. Utah's perimeter defense is so bad. You've got Rudy Gobert having to do much more from a perimeter defensive standpoint than he should have to be doing, given the skill set that he has. He has to erase a lot when it comes to what Utah does from a poor defensive standpoint, that you've had Rudy Gobert at times have to get out on the perimeter to guard guys because his teammates simply can't guard anybody else to keep them in front of them. And then Gobert has to erase and clean things up after that. But what if the teams go 5 out against us with Rudy, which he's been struggling with? Again, it's not necessarily things that are limiting him for sure, but I get the point when it comes to that 5-out offense. Could Gobert be played off the floor? I think the Mavericks have enough versatility to where they would be fine in those cases, even with teams going 5 out. But again, that goes back to the perimeter defense. Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, they've got guys that can defend and could help hide Rudy Gobert in some of those situations when it comes to that 5-out offense, and how teams could try to exploit that if they try to do some of those things against the Mavericks. This is Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka Doncic and the Mavericks close out the Utah Jazz tonight? Make sure you hit that like button right there for Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can become a member for just a couple dollars a month. Throw a super chat in there if you got a question that you want to make sure you get to the top that we answer as we get you ready for Game 6 tonight between the Mavericks and the Jazz. From Jackie Flash, the Jazz perimeter is whack. We can defend it. Yeah, we've seen that throughout the course of this series. Their perimeter defense has not been great. The Dallas Mavericks have done a terrific job on Donovan Mitchell, on Mike Conley, for the most part, on Bogdanovich. He's had a couple of nice moments in this series. But when you start thinking about Donovan Mitchell, other than the 19-point third quarter that he had in Game 1, he really hasn't been great for the Utah Jazz in this series. And now coming into this game where he's got bruised quads coming into tonight, how healthy is he going to be? The hamstring issues have been ruled out as far as Mitchell is concerned, but he's not going to be 100% going into tonight. From Wow Wim Tim, Rudy would be a perfect fit, but I think we could get a cheaper version of him. Miles Turner, Mitchell Robinson, Rashawn Holmes, some names when you talk about some athletic centers that could provide some paint presence for the Dallas Mavericks. Let's get to our fan predictions. How do you think tonight's game is going to go? What do you think will happen in Game 6 tonight? How will the Dallas Mavericks be able to close out the Utah Jazz? Let me know in the chat. Again, if you got a super chat you want to throw in there and you got a question, or if you want to become a member, you can do that for a couple dollars a month right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Inside the Mavs Live, Mavericks versus Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka Doncic and the Mavericks close out the game tonight? I'm going to take the Dallas Mavericks 102-98 on the road. I think they have enough to close out the Utah Jazz tonight. I think the Utah Jazz are ripe for implosion. I think this team is ready to be put out of their own misery. I really think that they have an opportunity to do the Mavericks to really take this team out of it. I think Luka Doncic could have a very, very special night when it comes to the Mavericks and their ability to win this game. From JP Swole, you think Dinwiddie will have a good game? He's due. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier when it came to Spencer Dinwiddie. I have him as my X factor going into tonight's game. His ability to get to the rim, knock down shots from the outside, he is going to have to be huge in this game to be able to put the Dallas Mavericks in position to have a chance to win this game late. From BD, my guy Kevin. Hey, man, appreciate you joining me right here on Kevin Gray Sports Inside the Mavs Live right here on Mavericks Jazz preview as we get you ready for the Mavericks taking on the Jazz in game number 6 tonight to see if they can handle their business and get out of this game with a win. From Keelish, I think it will be a lot closer as the Jazz will be playing for everything, but I expect another massive third quarter from Luka for the win. Yeah, Luka Doncic scored 19 points in that third quarter, the same amount as the Utah Jazz did. This is a guy who is fully healthy, who is back to his full capability and powers. Again, make sure you hit that like button inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Luka Doncic is back. He came out of game 4 clean. He came out of game 5 clean. They feel like he is 100% healthy. He is 100% healthy. If you saw some other videos here on Kevin Gray Sports, you saw him playing one-on-one with Boban Marjanovic, having a good time. Luka Doncic is back, and he's back to his full capable self. That is huge going into game number 6. From BD, they need to attack an unhealthy Donovan Mitchell like they did in game 3. That's a great point. If you feel like Donovan Mitchell's health is compromised when it comes to the quadriceps bruises that he's dealing with, if you feel like he's got a little bit of a hamstring problem, you attacked Donovan Mitchell early and often in this game to put pressure on him to try and make things difficult when it comes to the Utah Jazz and their defense. From Lester and do the Mavericks wear all black tonight like in 2011? Go Mavs. I don't think you'll see them in all black tonight. I love the idea and I love the concept, obviously, possibly going to a funeral tonight. But you got number 77 on the floor. There might be a funeral inside of Vivid Arena, and the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, might bury the Utah Jazz. We'll see. From Coltrane Cobain, Rudy Gobert is a no because he has butterfingers in the paint on offense. I get that. I definitely understand that. Someone cheaper, like mentioned earlier, is the ticket. Too much money for bad production on offense. Again, I get it. Not necessarily the best hands in terms on the offensive end, but I think he would be spectacular when it comes to his ability to not only handle things, but handle things well when it comes to Luka Doncic catching passes from him. From K-Choice 25, what do you think is wrong with Spencer? I don't think that's necessarily anything wrong for him from a confidence standpoint. I think he's going through a little bit of a shooting slump right now, much like Maxi Kleber did for those few weeks there. I think Spencer Dinwiddie's healthy. I think he's fine from a health standpoint. He just has simply not had the shots go down that he's accustomed to seeing go down. Make sure you hit that like button here on Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. I think Spencer's fine from a mental standpoint. He just has to see some shots falling, and more so than anything, especially in tonight's game, attack the rim early and often. The point was just made about attacking Donovan Mitchell in this game. You can do that, and then coming off the bench, as Spencer Dinwiddie will do, obviously, in this game, he has the ability to put pressure on defenses, get guys in the foul trouble, get Hassan Whiteside, get Gobert in the foul trouble. He can do that, but I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with Spencer Dinwiddie from the standpoint of when it comes to his mental state from a confidence perspective. I think he's okay when it comes to how he's feeling on the floor. He's just got to see some shots go down and see him go down early to really give him that extra boost that he needs. Gary Chadwick, Jazz fan here. Jazz fan in the building. Mavs just have better athletes and a better team. He's picking the Mavs 107-98 to close it out tonight. So there you go. You got Jazz fans in there talking about the idea that this team doesn't have enough to close out the Dallas or get a win to stave off elimination tonight in game number 6. From Jackie Flash, we don't even need Calvin Booth this time. That's funny. That's a great callback, which is ironic because Dirk Nowitzki won his very first playoff series against the Utah Jazz on the road. Dirk Nowitzki gets to see his former teammate, Luka Doncic, possibly do the same thing as him in closing out his first round series on the road against the Utah Jazz. Just tremendous symmetry when you start thinking about what the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, Dirk Nowitzki could possibly doing tonight in game number 6 as far as Luka Doncic is concerned. Again, appreciate you joining us on Inside the Mavs Live right here, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can become a member for a couple $1 a month. If you want to throw a super chat in there, you can do so as well. And appreciate you joining us right here. My name is Kevin Gray. Of course, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can download my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts for free. Just search The Gray Area, and you can download and subscribe that podcast. From Todd Hamilton, let's get that championship. From Jake Arona, Dinwiddie. Hey, Kevin, I know it's early, but do you see any moves being made surrounding Brunson or signing and trading? We were talking about that a little bit earlier. I don't think the Mavericks are wanting to move on from Jalen Brunson. I think they will do everything that they can to keep him this summer. He has proven to be a valuable piece for this team who is only going to get better. The way that he has helped the Dallas Mavericks get to this point in the series, I think continues to show why the Mavericks continue to believe in him. From Lexter Ang, agree, hope Spencer will score like 20 points and be efficient. He takes too much time to dribble in place before you know it. It's the shot clock about to expire. And MFFL in the Philippines. So we got the Philippines in the house right here on Kevin Gray Sports, Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. So, hey, look, Todd Hamilton, I feel your energy. I like it. I said it earlier this week. I'm not ready to get the Mavericks all the way to the Western Conference Finals just yet or to the NBA championship. But, hey, All bets are off if you win this series against the Utah Jazz, and you never know what could happen in the rest of the playoffs. Phoenix is dealing with injury when it comes to Devin Booker. He's got the hamstring problem that he's dealing with. We've seen how injuries have taken tolls on teams as far as the NBA playoffs are concerned. We heard news from Shams Charania today that Chris Middleton with the sprained MCL is going to be out the entire second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs for the Milwaukee Bucks when they take on the Boston Celtics. So injuries have taken a toll on these playoffs, but you never know how things may break for a team. And for the Dallas Mavericks, you're playing with house money on the road. Handle your business tonight and then give yourself an opportunity to get as much rest as you can going into a possible game one on Monday, regardless of how this series plays out. Make sure you're hitting that like button right here on Kevin Gray Sports Inside the Mavs Live. Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka and the Mavs close out the Utah Jazz tonight? From K-Choice 25 here in our chat room. Kid has been great for the guards for this team. They are seeing the floor the way he sees the floor between JB and Luka. That's a terrific point. Jalen Brunson's relationship with Jason Kidd has continued to grow as the season has gone on. If you watch them in practice, as I get to go and see practice, pretty much every day, Jason Kidd and Jalen Brunson are always around each other, talking to each other, and you can tell how well their relationship is growing. You can see the vision. You can see the ability for Jalen Brunson to diagnose what's going on the floor. That has grown exponentially this year, and that's because he's got a Hall of Fame point guard being able to lead and to coach and to mentor him night in and night out. Jalen Brunson's growth and development under Jason Kidd has been growing by leaps and bounds this year to the point where he has the complete trust of not only Jason Kidd, but this entire organization. And you've seen how that's come to fruition in this series with his ability to lead, not just when it comes to scoring, but doing all the things that the Mavericks are asking him to do. And what a night and day turnaround it's been for Jalen Brunson from last year to this year, getting played off the floor against the Los Angeles Clippers in a bad matchup where Rick Carlisle lost confidence in Brunson's ability to be on the floor against the Clippers, to now Jalen Brunson being an essential member of the Mavericks and what they do from an offensive standpoint. That just gives you an idea of the kind of effect that Jason Kidd has had on Jalen Brunson this season. Again, make sure you're hitting that like button here on Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. Can we see Luka and the Mavs close out the Utah Jazz tonight? All right. Who wins and why? We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Who wins and why tonight in game number 6 in Utah? Game time tonight at 9 p.m. at Vivint Arena. Can the Utah Jazz find a way to stave off elimination tonight, or can the Dallas Mavericks, for the first time since 2011, win a playoff series and move on in the Western Conference playoffs? I'm going to pick the Mavs tonight to win this game. I think they win 102-98. The Mavericks have been really good in clutch time throughout the duration of the season, especially during the second half. If you can get to a situation, look, we saw it in game number 4. Utah came out hot early, had a 12-point lead at halftime. The Mavericks outscored the Jazz by 15 in that third quarter to take a lead going into the fourth quarter of game number 4. Had a chance to win it up 4 with 39 seconds late in game 4. All the pressure is squarely on Utah to find a way to stave off elimination. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you're coming into tonight's game loose. You're ready to have fun. And it's an us against the world mentality. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you're coming in with all the house money in the world, knowing what kind of pressure is on Utah, because if they do not find a way to stave off elimination and find a way to somehow come back from a 3-2 deficit for the first time since 2007, this team is going to look very different going into next year in reference to the Utah Jazz. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks, it's an important series for them to win, knowing the ramifications of what could be coming in the next round. If the Pelicans find a way to upset the Phoenix Suns, I don't think they necessarily will. I think the Phoenix Suns do close them out tonight as far as game 6 is concerned in their series. But I think the Mavericks win 102-98 in a close one. It's going to come down to their ability to erase offensive possessions and multiple offensive possessions for the Utah Jazz. Spencer Dinwiddie is my X factor going into the game. Can he find himself having a big game and being able to put pressure on Gobert? Whiteside attacking the rim. You've seen at times when Spencer Dinwiddie has attacked the rim, he put Rudy Gobert on a poster. He's capable of doing that. He's going to have to do that much more consistently in this game. From Ali El Shaddai, appreciate that. Great content, appreciate that. From Critical Schmidt here on our YouTube chat room. Again, you can throw in a super chat if you want to. If you want to get your question answered, you become a member for a couple bucks a month as well, right here on Kevin Gray Sports. From Critical Schmidt, I hope for a great game from Davis Bertans. Although he's had some rough shooting games lately, he's always provided some good energy from the bench and really tried to not be a defensive liability. Yeah, he can't be a defensive liability, but more importantly, he's got to knock down shots for this Mavericks team. If he can, he could be another X factor in this game. Another one that I'll throw in there, if you want another X factor, Josh Green. When Josh Green has knocked down shots, it changes the entire trajectory of how that Mavericks bench looks with Kleba, with Bertans, and now Dinwiddie coming back off the bench. Josh Green's ability to at least hit a few three-pointers to keep the Utah Jazz defensively honest is going to be key in this game. From Jackie Flash, Mavs win is going to be close, I think, because that's how playoff ball usually goes. But at the end, we've got the squad with the stronger mentality. The Jazz are kind of fragile. I agree with that. A lot of the mental fragility that we've seen from the Utah Jazz at times in this series has come into play. That was something coming into this series that we thought could play a factor, keeping games close, giving themselves the best opportunity for the Mavericks to find a way to be able to handle their business. They could possibly do that. Tomas, go, Luka. Yeah, this team will go as far as Luka Doncic takes them. Make sure you hit that like button here on Inside the Mavs Live right here on Mavericks Jazz game preview going into game number 6 tonight. Can Luka and the Mavs close out the Utah Jazz? From Tony Wynn, what is your timeline for Josh Green to be a permanent fixture of the rotation? He needs to earn a starting job to justify his draft status. Josh Green has found his role here. He's an energy guy that's going to provide you some good defense. He's got to improve his jump shot this offseason. Coming into next year, he has got to be a much more consistent three-point shooter. I know how people feel. I'm one of them when it comes to Josh Green in relation to guys like Desmond Bane, Sadiq Bey, any of those guys that were there in that 17, 18, 19 range, Tyrese Maxey, obviously, and the work that he's been putting in for the Philadelphia 76ers. I know a lot of people have soured on Josh Green because they've seen the Banes of the world, the Sadiq Beys of the world, the Tyrese Maxeys of the world having real big impacts for their teams as far as the NBA playoffs are concerned, or in the case for the Detroit Pistons, what looks like a bright future for them with a Sadiq Bey as part of their team going forward. But I think Josh Green has found his niche with this team, energy off the bench, being able to provide some really good passing. He's a really underrated passer. He's got to get better when it comes to his ability to knock down shots from the outside to justify him getting longer stretches on the floor, because teams right now don't respect his ability to shoot the basketball. And personally, I wouldn't either if I was looking at a Josh Green taking wide open shots. If he can get better from the outside, I think he becomes that much more valuable as a player for this team going forward. From Little Smitty 41, I'm torn with Josh Green, but yes, the jump shot needs to improve tremendously. I think that's going to be huge for him. He's going to have an opportunity this summer to work on that shot, especially now with the confidence that he has, knowing how much Jason Kidd believes in him as a player. That's going to be huge coming from him this summer. From Luka Skywalker 77, keep it coming, sir. Love the Mavs content. Appreciate that. Make sure you hit that like button on the video. If you want to become a member for a couple $1 a month, you can do that right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Throw in a super chat if you got a question that you want to get put to the top. We'll get to that right here in our last few minutes. Got about 7-8 minutes left before we get out of here on our show today. We appreciate you joining me here on Inside the Mavs Live. Mavericks versus Jazz Game 6 preview. Can Luka Doncic and the Mavs close things out? Of course, my name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube, and you can download my podcast, the Gray Area Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts for free, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast for free. Really appreciate that. Got about 5-6 minutes left in our show. Give me your predictions. Give me a score prediction in the chat if you want to. What do you believe the score is going to be? Who does it? How they get it done? And why the Mavericks, if you feel like the Mavericks are going to win tonight, or if you feel like the Jazz. We had a Jazz fan earlier in our chat room. If you feel like the Jazz are going to win tonight, let me know how they do it. From Anna here on our chat room, Don't overpay for Brunson. Give Hardaway his minutes, sign a big rim protector and rebounder. Definitely understand the sentiment for sure. Jalen Brunson is going to get a big payday. Jalen Brunson, I think, is going to get a 9-figure payday, whether it be, possibly $100 million. Don't get, over your skis. He's going to get between $80 and $100 million this offseason. It's going to be upwards over $20 million per year. He's going to get between $80 and $100 million when it comes to Jalen Brunson's contract. So I want you to get your mind ready for that when it comes for Jalen Brunson and his contract this summer. From Lexter Ang, the Mavs 108, the Jazz 92. So I'm predicting a 16-point win for the Dallas Mavericks. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that, but I like your energy. I like where you're going with that. From Harold Victor, 110 to 90. He's got a 20-point victory for the Dallas Mavericks tonight. Luka drops 50. I like the energy. The Mavericks fans predicting a big-time performance, a big-time win, and Luka dropped him 50. From Tomas, 99-90. Dallas wins. I like that score prediction there. From Lexter and Page, AB can't afford for him to walk away. Definitely agree with you there. I think the Mavericks will do everything they can to put him in position to be a Dallas Maverick for a long time. From Hammurabi here, Mavs 112, Jazz 88, 50 between Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic. Everyone else averaging around 10 points per game. I like the big time scores you guys got. You guys feel like the Mavericks going to win this thing comfortably in game number 6 tonight. I like the energy when it comes to the Mavericks fans and how you guys are feeling tonight. As I mentioned, I got the Mavericks winning 102-98. 102-98. That's the score that I have. I think it's going to be a close nip and tuck game throughout the course of this ball game. Of course, I would be pleasantly surprised if the Dallas Mavericks decide to go ahead and blow them out when it comes to the Utah Jazz. We'll see how that goes. From Michael Macy here, Mavs win, but it's going to be a close game. I agree with that. From Tomas, Luka's going to have 39, 9, and 9, a big-time night you're predicting from Luka. For Luka Skywalker, 77, the Jazz fans are going to hit the exit early tonight. I like this energy. I like it. From Critical Smith, 122, 114 Mavs in overtime. That's going to be a hell of a ball game. If we're getting a 122, 114 game in game 6 in overtime. Michael Macy, 105, 103 Mavs. My man Felipe McNamara, who just became a member here on Kevin Gray Sports. Again, you can become a member for just a couple dollars a month. He predicts 115 to 101 Mavs, a 14-point victory. So some big scores in here, though. Wow, you guys are feeling really good about them. Look, the Mavericks are giving yourself a lot of confidence to feel like they can potentially do what they did based on what happened in Game 5. The defensive effort is going to have to be really good for them. Donovan Mitchell and this team is not going to go out without a fight. It's going to be fun to watch to see if the Dallas Mavericks can put that kind of defensive effort again going into game number 6 tonight. From Harold Victor. No 4-point leads, though. I'm traumatized by game 4. Look, man, things happen in the game of basketball. And the Dallas Mavericks, who, look, a lot of us thought, pretty much all of us thought, that Luka Doncic had put the dagger in the Utah Jazz to put them out of their misery. Give credit to Utah. They did not fold. They did not give in, and they gave themselves the best chance. Yes, they got some help from Luka Doncic on a bad foul on Donovan Mitchell, which should have been an offensive foul that we saw from the last 2-minute report. Ain't going to worry about that. The Dallas Mavericks have handled their business since then. Again, make sure you hit that like button here in the last couple minutes here on our Inside the Mavs Live Mavs Jazz preview for game number 6. From Big Santana, 105-99, big game for Spencer Dinwiddie. That's what we've been talking about as our X factor going into tonight's game. Michael Macy, Utah has a big home court advantage, loud crowd plus the elevation. If you could take the crowd out early, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, find a way to get that crowd out of it. This is their last stand. If you're a Jazz fan, if you're a team if someone that supports the Jazz, this is their last stand. If they cannot handle their business, this is going to be a very different looking team going into next NBA season. It's going to be up to the Mavericks to see if they can put them out of their misery tonight. Look, Donovan Mitchell's not necessarily going to be healthy, fully 100% healthy. The Mavericks have to attack him early. Luka Skywalker, 77. Luka's going to put on a show. From AST DVRS there. My bad on that. 116-105 Mavs. JP Swole. Mavs win 115-95. Boba's going to play tonight. Wow. Boban Marjanovic is going to play. Oh, appreciate that. Cheers. Hello from Slovenia. Love my people out in Slovenia. Y'all have been fantastic when it comes to watching my videos, when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks. Appreciate that. Dole in CD. Appreciate that. Luka 45, 12, and 13 from AST DVRS there in our chat. It should be a fun game tonight. The Dallas Mavericks, game number 6 in Utah, Vivid Arena, 9 p.m. Central Time, a late start time out there in Utah. Can the Dallas Mavericks win their first series since 2011? Can Luka Doncic do what his former teammate, his predecessor, his boy, his mentor, Dirk Nowitzki did in being able to win his first playoff series on the road against Utah? We'll see if he can do that. Real quick from Jackie Flash. Before you go, Kev, respect for calling out this Cowboys front office the way you see it. No sugarcoating. Facts are facts. Also, you shouldn't. Oh yeah, I appreciate that, man. I definitely will do plenty more live streams here on Kevin Gray. So this is just the beginning. Again, if you want to become a member, you could do that for a couple dollars a month, like my man Felipe McNamara did earlier. For a couple dollars a month, you can be a member of Kevin Gray Sports right here on YouTube. We're going to get out of here. I appreciate you joining me right here on Inside the Mavs Live, our Mavericks Jazz Game 6 preview. I got the Mavericks winning 102-98 to close out their first round series against the Utah Jazz. If they do not win, Game 7 will be on Saturday at the American Airlines Center, where Luka Doncic and the Mavericks would return to try and move on in the Western Conference playoffs. Again, from AST DVRS, shout out from the Philippines. Can the Mavs get to the finals? We're going to find out. Let's get out of the first round first and then see and go from there. Again, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Become a member for a couple bucks a month. And you can also download and subscribe to my podcast, The Gray Area, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts for free. I appreciate you joining me right here on Inside the Mavs Live, right here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. We'll be doing this a few times a week, especially as the Mavericks continue to go throughout the playoffs. Let's see if the Mavericks can finish it off tonight or in Game 7. Either way, we will be covering all things. I will be covering all things for your Dallas Mavericks. Again, this has been Inside the Mavs Live right here on Kevin Gray Sports. Subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Appreciate you joining me right here on Inside the Mavs Live. I'll talk to you later. Peace.